Hello everyone and welcome to ZP Productions, and today we'll be talking about LED lights here, and I will talk about the different type of LED lights, what I have here, and then I will talk about some pros and cons of LED light. And as a portrait photographer, is LED lights something that you should consider for the purpose of lighting? I'm Richard and welcome to ZP Productions. As I said earlier, today we'll be talking about LED lights. I will introduce some of the stuff I have here. We'll talk about the pros and cons, and then finally we'll talk about, as a portrait photographer, should you have LED lights as some of the lighting equipment that you can utilize. Now first, let's introduce to what I have on the table here. Now there's two brands of light here. I own the Nun lights, as you can see, Nun light here, and I also own the apertures. The aperture lights here, this is the 300X control box. These are the control box, and this is the lights that correspond to them. Notice how big they are. This is the 300 Forza, 300 watt lights, by the way, control box, and then the lights themselves. And this is the 300X aperture. This is a bi-color light, which means it goes warm to cool, and you can actually tune it inside the light itself. And this is the control box for it. Now these of course are the bigger lights, and there are the smaller ones like the Forza 60B. Bi-color light, small light. By the way, this is not the light, this is the modifier below. This is the light only. Quite small if you ask me. And this is probably my most favorite setup. And then this is of course the latest Aperture 60D. This is a single color light. There's a bi-color version, which I probably will get one soon. But this is a single color version, and the interesting part is that it has a built-in Fresnel, which means you can actually focus the light. Now these are lights with mounts. So this is Bowen mount, and then this is some Godox equivalent, or should I say non-light equivalent mount. Not Godox, by the way. Small little mount that is only for non-light 60 series, and then for this light it doesn't have a mount. You can use an adapter to get a Bowen mount on it. Now these are lights with mount, and then let's see lights without mount. Lights without mount comes in many shapes and sizes. One of them is a tube shape like this. This is a Power Tube 15C, by the way. Power Tube 15C. This is a long, slim light that comes with full color, and then you can also use it in standard, the standard color lights like this, and then color modes. So this is the nice part of this style of lights. They give you quite a lot of options to play with, and you can actually even have effects. Now effects are mainly for video, not for photos. But yeah, this is one such tube lights. By the way, the light behind me that is giving the purple light is one of these Power Tube 15Cs. Now there are of course lights of many shapes and sizes. This is a panel. This is a mixed panel 60 watt panel light that also comes in RGBW, and even has soft and hard mode. Then in front of me lighting me is the Nova, the Aperture Nova 300 watt full RGBW lights. Now these are the lights that I have now. There are some other lights that I don't have now, which is some of the smaller panel lights that you can actually put on camera. In fact, somebody asked me what kind of lights I can recommend. You can actually take a look at Nunlight Little Light 5C or Aperture MC. Both of them are smaller panel lights, come with full RGBW, and then has pretty much accurate colors and can be put on a camera easily by buying one of those adapters themselves. Those are one such form factors. Now there is also one more very interesting form factor. I don't have it here, but I have it in the studio, and that is flexi cloth lights type of design. In fact, let me show you a photo here. So there are lights mounted on a cloth. Some of them are even waterproof, or you can put in a bathroom and whatever you can want with it. You can shoot it under the rain, and most importantly, they are very light and thin. So I actually stick them on the wall for my studio, and it acts some sort of a window light. Quite interesting concept, really. So as you can see, LED lights come in many shapes and sizes, from mounts to fixtures to long tubes to cloth light, type of design. Really depends on what you need. There are probably lights for you. Now it goes on to the next section that I want to talk about, and what are the pros and cons of using LED lights. Now I'm a positive person, so I shall start with the pros first, and the first pro is very simple. LED lights are constant lights, and constant light give you what you see is what you get. I don't think I need to explain much, but literally it means that what you see in the scene itself with your eyes is what you get, from the shadow hardness, how you cut the light, if you're using any modifier, where the light falls, everything can be seen very easily. It makes learning lighting a lot simpler. That's the first pro. The second pro I will talk about is flexibility, because most of these lights go from 0% to 100%, and the more powerful ones like the Nova goes at 0.1% to 100%, which means that you can go really, really, really low to really, really bright, and you can tweak them accordingly. In fact, for aperture, you can even tweak how the dimming cycle rises so that you can even get lower power at the lower end and higher power at the higher end. Total, you cannot, of course, you cannot produce more than 300 watt of power, right? But how they ramp up everything can be tweaked. So a lot of flexibility in how you ramp up in terms of brightness. And the next thing is that there are bi-color lights such as the 300X and the Forza 60B here. Both of them give you flexibility in terms of the color temperature. They go from 2700 to 6005. Both of these allows you to shoot in almost any situation. I mean, street lights are like 3002 to 4000 Kelvin. So if you want them to look white, you can actually tweak them accordingly to match the street lights. Or if you want your city to look blue, you can push them down to 2700 Kelvin and you'll make your city lights, which are 4000 Kelvin, blue. So these are flexibility that you get out of all these lights here. And the last thing I want to say, that LED lights, especially the colored ones or the very extreme one like the Nova here, gives you creative options that you cannot get. Why do I say so? Firstly, in terms of placement and sizing, a lot of these LED lights are self-contained, so they have battery and everything. Some of them have, of course, controller boxes, but they usually can be extended far away. But most importantly is their form factors are quite interesting. I mean, things like the tubes and the cloth can put almost anywhere, so that's the first creative option. You can put LED lights in places that you cannot reach normally with any form of other lighting equipment. So that is one flexible option. Of course, I don't have it here, but as I said, in my studio, I have those cloth ones that act as window lights. Now, the next thing that, in terms of creative option, is full color control. Now, things that in Flash world, just talking about color, color temperature itself, you probably need to put gels to change the color temperature. While bi-color lights already give you the ability to change your color temperature without putting any gel, and there's no penalty in brightness. By the way, the brightness is not as bright. I'll talk about it in the cons. But the fact that you can actually change the color temperature of the lights themselves without affecting generally the brightness of the lights makes a very good compelling argument on creativity itself. And the next thing is that for the RGBW, like the tube lights that you see here, the panels front and back of me, those lights give you options to even use in full RGBW, allow you to set any color in the spectrum almost. And you can get some really creative options, such as one of these photos here shot, this is the KDA group, and this photo itself, the lights, the colored background you see is actually a LED light, not some paper, not some set. It's just a backlight that is on a wall that is quite far away, maybe like I think 4 meters away, but it's lit by a Nova 300C. And the Nova is quite bright, so I could actually still get the shot at about f5.6 ISO 100 or ISO 200, I remember. So you still get a very nice, strong color behind. Such a creative option is something that you cannot get in flashes. Or should I say, to do that in flash, you require to gel, bring a lot of extra equipment and modifiers to get it done. So LED lights give you a lot of flexibility as long as you have the correct type of lights on hand. Now, that being said, there are a lot of cons to LED lights. Firstly, they are not very powerful. Even such a light like the 300 watt aperture here, or the non-light 300 watt here, if you want to put them in a softbox, compare in brightness, they give you something like f4 at 1/200 shutter at ISO 100, and you can probably do the same thing with easily a speed light, or in fact maybe a speed light have more power. I mean, if you use one of the bigger speed lights like the V1, or maybe you use something like the Godox 8200, you'll probably be more powerful than these lights here, because these are constant lights and those lights are a burst of light. So the burst of light is always better for the purpose of photography. And then secondly is for the amount of power they give out, they are really, really big and heavy. I mean, as I said, these 300 watt lights are as powerful as probably a speed light, but look at their size. This is just the head, then there's the control, and then there's the cables, and then you need the batteries to run them. So they probably, at the end state weigh like 8 times more than a speed light. For 8 times more, you do not get 8 times the power. In fact, you get only similar or even less power than a speed light. So that is something you do to trade off. The weight is intense just to get the same power as a speed light, but you get a constant light, and you get what you see is what you get. And then lastly, it doesn't affect modern lights, but the older lights have color accuracy problems. But the modern ones in recent years don't have such issue. When I talk about color accuracy, is how it renders, like a blue should be blue and a red should be red. But some LED lights, especially the cheaper ones, if you just get something from China, unrendered and it's cheap, you are going to prepare yourself that the red doesn't look exactly red and the blue doesn't look exactly blue. And that's because the LED light panels are not emitting the correct colors. Now, for these high-end ones here, the branded like Nunlight and Aperture, you won't have such problem. They are relatively accurate. But when you do editing, you notice that you can't push them as far as true sunlight. Not a big deal really, but you can feel it somewhat, I would say. So that is pretty much the 3 cons that I talk about, which I feel is very significant for a photographer themselves. Weight is something that you have to always consider unless you work in a very big team. And power is always you need to consider, because if you use big modifiers, that is always a restriction. And lastly, accuracy affects how you edit. So that is very important. But considering the pros is a good thing, because in my last section, which I'm going to talk about, which is on the how does it benefit a portrait photographer and should you have LED lights? I think LED lights, first biggest advantage, what you see is what you get, is a huge advantage that strobes can never do. Now, why is that really important? Firstly, many of you probably use flash before. I mean, if you are looking at my channel, which is very specialized in certain equipment, you probably know what flashes are and you probably use somewhat before. Now, the thing is that flash requires imagination. It requires you to imagine, or should I visualize, how a light falls on a subject, how the light casts a shadow, and ultimately how the shadow looks like, and where the light falls on or where the light doesn't fall on, right? All these things are really important because that is the whole point of photography and videography, to light the things you want and then capture them. Now, flash gives you that big steep slope that you need to climb to really understand the lighting themselves. And if you ask me, that is even worse if you use specialized modifiers such as I would say a snoots, spotlight projector like this, or maybe Fresnels or any hard modifiers, because those lights are very directional, cast very strong shadows, and you probably don't know where they end up with. Good photographers probably can visualize in their mind, this light will probably look like this, but if you are not very well trained, you probably can't imagine that, and that is a problem. So LED lights overcome this barrier by literally showing you what you see is what you get, and thereafter you can learn how the various modifier works, how the shadow looks like, how does a softbox shadow look like versus a hard modifier such as a reflector or a Fresnel, and then thereafter you can probably pick up yourself and then use flashes thereafter if you want more power. I mean, as I said, to get like a f5.6 with LED lights is really, really hard. You need a lot of power, and that can be easily done with flashes themselves. Now, the thing is, as a portrait photographer, after shooting so long with flashes, and then suddenly, the LED lights got a lot better. I purchased a lot of them. In fact, all these I purchased in the last 1 year. I'm really impressed, honestly. I would say as LED lights have improved so much. When I first started my studio with my wife runs a studio. I find that the LED lights then weren't very good. They weren't very accurate. The color wasn't that nice. And most importantly, there is very limited options. You can't really do much. And when you try to put those lights inside modifiers, they are really weak. Today, LED lights are so much more powerful. They are robust. They give really good lighting. And they are very viable for photography. These are all things that cannot be achieved 5 years ago. Or should I say, it can be achieved 5 years ago, but it will cost you a lot more, and you have to get brands, not like Aperture and Nunlight here. You probably have to get Ari or something that costs a lot more than these lights, 3-4 times more, and they weigh even more. So LED lights have come a long way. They became significantly affordable, and they give so much options today. And really, as a portrait photographer, I really like bicolor lights. I mean, take a look at some of the photos I shot here. Now, bicolor lights give you supreme color control, because at times you really cannot control your environment light, but what you can control is the main light on the subject. And using bicolor lights allow you to shoot at maybe 3200 or 2700 as the main light, and then you make the whole skyline blue. That is something you cannot do, because most skylines are actually not really blue, because most places in this world, or should I say the cities themselves, uses orange light for their office, orange light for the walkways, orange light for everything. It's actually not very common to get white light everywhere. That's what I think I'm going to say. So one thing really I admire using bicolor lights, so much flexibility there. And then we go down to the color lights, portraiture, sometimes make yourself interesting, you want color lights. LED lights give you the full color options that you cannot achieve. I mean, you can achieve with flashes, but you need to bring gels, and gels create a whole lot of problem. How to mount them properly, how to mount them securely, color gels that you need on hand, maybe during the time of the shoot, you want certain color, it's not available. And then you have all the problems of light leaks and stuff that will happen if you don't secure the gel properly. So much other problems that you will get out of it. And then the gels actually result in a lot of loss of power. In fact, the loss of power in a gel light is is significant enough that it will be sometimes even lousier than a LED light. So there are things that you need to consider really. But that being said, a flashlight is still essential if you really want f8, f11 photos. But if you're not aiming for that kind of very small aperture type of shot, you're aiming for f4, f2.8, LED lights can do it today, and they do it pretty well. And if you're doing night photography, especially if you want to use the ambient lights, then even more so, because LED lights give you the ability to go as low as 1% or even 0.1%, supreme control, and then all the bicolor options give you so much flexibility. So in conclusion, I think that as a portrait photographer, you should really explore LED lighting. LED lighting really will reduce that complexity of lighting itself, allow you to explore further, allow you to explore more, give you more creative options that you could never get before. And in today's world, they are very good. They are not cheap in any way. I mean, they cost pretty much on the mid-range if you compare to flashes, right? About $1,000 Sing dollars or USD. These are the range that you're looking at, but they are not expensive like $5,000 bronze color expensive. They are like something like a high-end Godox price. So very affordable already if you can try it out. The only problem is weight, and without helpers, they are problematic. But if you're doing night shoot, you probably don't need so much power, and something like a Forza 60B will accomplish that. So as a portrait photographer, I highly recommend that you try out LED lighting. So it improves firstly your lighting sense, and secondly, give you creative options that you could not get last time. Other than that, I don't have much to say today because this is just an introduction to LED lighting, and I just want to share with you how I feel about LED lights. But in the future, I'll probably do some tutorials on really how to use LED lights to light up the place to get interesting portraiture. Now, the thing is that, especially when I shoot cosplay, which is sometimes for fun, sometimes there is some monetary returns. When I do them, normally lighting is very important because of the character design, because of the concept. Sometimes you have colored light, sometimes you have slitted light, sometimes you have patterns. So cosplay are a good way to explore those lighting concepts. Now, when you do actual fashion itself, it depends on what your client needs, what you want to achieve. Those are a whole different ballgame. And that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed this short little session on me talking about LED lights. And I will see you again in my next video. Till then, bye-bye.